Hi there, and welcome to Flip the Script Season 3 in the Weeds, Episode 13. Likability, Rapport, Credibility, and Trust. Which one plummets conversion, which two get you partially the way there, and the only one that you should focus on to drive conversion. My name's Becc. I'm going to be your guide through today's session. If you do me a favor, if you go to flipthescript.co, click the free sales training hub on the left, navigate down to Season 3 and click there, and then click Episode 13 and download the deck on the left-hand side of the session. So it's going to be a really meaty session, so I want to make sure that you have the deck so you can follow along at each step of the way. So you just have to put in your email address and you can download it for free. Once you've done that, we can go ahead and jump on into the content. So this is our agenda for today. We're going to go into the importance of having a goal. What is likability? What's rapport? What's credibility? What's trust? And then which one is the smartest one to optimize for? So let's get going. So the importance of having a goal. So a lot of people are going to ask me, or I can already hear it coming. A lot of people are going to ask me, why can't you do all four? Why can't you have likability, trust, credibility, and rapport? And the answer is you can, but it's all about your focus. You can only have one focus. You can only have one primary goal. You can only have one best friend. So this is about focus and which one I'm inherently goaling myself on or looking to achieve before I'm achieving any of the others. And so you'll find out, I'm not going to get into it right now, but that goaling for one of these, you can actually achieve the others, but without churning your ultimate goal of having this. So you can only have one focus. So which one do we focus on? So first, before I go into that, we're going to define all four of those. So the first here is going to be likability. So likability, as defined, is going to be the qualities that bring about favorable regard. So this is something that you like within a person that brings you positive regard. And synonyms to this are going to be the person is pleasant, the person is agreeable, meaning they agree with whatever you say, and that you like them because of it. So this is the first, it's likability. I'm not going to take any opinion or stance yet, but this, if you're aiming for likability in the sales floor, it's usually going to sound that you're asking complimentary questions, you're giving out compliments, you're trying to not rock the boat. You are essentially just wanting the person to have favorable regard towards you, and how you're doing that is by agreeing with them a lot. So the second is going to be rapport. Rapport is actually a French term in its root, and it's meant to, it means essentially to bring back. So this is a harmonious relationship, a relationship where you are in harmony with your buyer. So within the selling floor, this would mean that you have a mutual understanding of what's going on. You understand their perspective. You understand what they're goaled on. And if I had to guess what it means to be to brought back, of you were originally at odds with your buyer, of you're after selling for whatever you're after, and now you're bringing yourself back to the side of the buyer to see things how they see them. So this is somewhat of an improvement, but rapport is going to be essentially you just have a relationship of harmony because you're both on the same side as one another. The third is going to be credibility, and credibility, essentially defined, is going to be, simply put, the quality of inspiring belief in something. So we're going to go into what that belief is defined by. But in this case scenario, having credibility just means that you're inspiring, someone believes something about you. You have inspired belief in someone else about something that you want them to believe. So that's what credibility is. And then the last one here is going to be trust. So trust is someone has a firm belief in you, just like credibility, but what they believe in is one of four things. They believe in the truth of something that you're saying. So essentially that whatever you said is the truth and is correct according to your knowledge. The strength of something or legitimacy of something. The ability of someone or the reliability of someone to deliver on the result they said they were going to. So the wonderful thing about trust, and I hear this a lot with sellers, they say, well, someone doesn't trust me. And often what they're referring to is they don't trust that they're telling the truth. But the other things that our prospects would be having to trust about us is that we're capable of doing something that would be valuable to them, and that they can rely on us to deliver on the result that we think we can deliver. So just because I believe someone's telling the truth does not mean that I believe in their ability. So these are the comprehensive things that people are thinking about whenever they're coming across a seller is, can I trust that the person is telling the truth when they say what they can deliver? And then do I trust that they can actually deliver that? Do they have the ability and do they have the expertise to be able to execute on whatever they told me? So which one should you optimize for? Because again, you can only have one goal. You can only have one goal in the room whenever you are selling. And so some of the others can come in tandem with the others, but I'm going to go into some of the problems with optimizing for 3 of them and then double down on the one that I would optimize for. So who the winner is, the one that I would optimize for, I want you to guess in your head, write it down on a piece of paper. What I would optimize for is trust. So again, this is going to inherently achieve you all of the others by default if you're optimizing for this one in the room. So the problems with optimizing for likability, number 1 is you're going to have to act in a certain way. So you'll see this a lot in what I would call interview smile, of someone's interviewing for a job. And so they're just smiling a lot. You know, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so funny. Or, you know, oh, I think this company is amazing. Or I give the example of, in one of the recent seasons of The Bachelor, there was this girl essentially who wanted to win The Bachelor. So she was saying great things about him. You're awesome. You're amazing. I really see a future together. And then he says, Piper, I'm not choosing you. And on a dime, she shifts. She's like, I never thought you were a real man. And, you know, these are the top 5 things that are wrong about you. And I don't like how you handle this situation. Swats his arm away, won't take his arm to walk to the car, gets into the car, won't hug him, and then gets in the car and goes on a rant on how essentially he's awful and she shouldn't have opened up and trusted him. Now, I would argue I asked the question, which one was the real Piper? Which one is what she really believed? And I would argue neither. Neither one were truly what she believed. She had either a reaction or an agenda in both case scenarios. But out of the 2, I would guess the latter. That is what she really thought. But she liked him and she wanted to win something from him. She wanted to, win marriage with him. So she was acting in a certain way. So the problem with optimizing for likability is you have to act. You have to be acting in a certain way to essentially try to get them to like you. Number 2, my biggest disagreement with it is you have to agree with them. By definition, you have to agree with them. Now, I'm not saying to challenge your prospects just because you want to. There's a lot of people who do that. And I would say that's not advantageous to them. But you owe it to your prospects to challenge them whenever they think that they need something that won't get them into the place where they want to go. There's a lot of times, I would say by and large, I went to a couple of doctor's appointments to ask them questions, and they said that 95% of the time when people self-diagnose, they're incorrect in their diagnosis. So you have to, or you should, challenge the buyer in that moment and say like, hey, I don't, this isn't I hear you say that you need this or you want this, but given what you're running into, that's inherently not going to get you to your goal. So in likability, if you're aiming for that, you have to agree with them all the time. So that's my biggest, I would say, beef with it is essentially you have to agree with your buyer all the time in likability, and you can't challenge them. You can't diagnose. You can't challenge them. It often comes off as disingenuous. You can't solely talk about business. And with liking someone, I'd say another big factor to think about here is liking someone or wanting something or wanting to be around someone is based in the child ego state. And the child ego state, I don't have too much time to go into it, but a good book to read is Eric Berne, Games People Play or Beyond Games and Scripts, 2 great books to read by him. He talks a lot about the child ego state. Desire is based in the child ego state. And what you'll see is easy come, easy go. I want chicken nuggets. No, I want mac and cheese. No, I want pizza. No, I just want to cry and fall asleep. This is what happened to me last night, by the way. Just kidding. Point being, child ego state is easy come, easy go. So you'd see people, kings and queens, bring in certain people into court, and then they don't like them anymore. So off with their heads. So same thing in the sales floor, hopefully not off with your heads. But if you're aiming for someone to just relationship sell based on relationships with them liking you, it's not strong enough. It's not deeply rooted enough. And the minute that a better business value prop comes up, they can make a transition. It's based on nothing. The last one is you can't ask your prospect uncomfortable questions. There's a lot of uncomfortable questions I have to ask if I'm out for having my buyers back. So asking them questions about quota attainment or their performance against that, or their email, what do their emails look like? And that can be uncomfortable for them because they don't, essentially want to show me. But if I'm after liking me, I wouldn't ask those questions. If I'm after helping them, then I will ask those questions. I must. So likability is the biggest culprit. And I hear this pop up a lot of people say, like, I sell based on relationships. And what they mean by that is they take them out to the golf course, they take them out to the dinner, or they, buy them tickets, to some football game. And like, this inherently means that you are at the mercy of, does someone like you in the moment? Is that strong enough to buy, because you haven't developed any of the problems that they're running into? Problem with optimizing for rapport, shorter list. So rapport, you're getting a little bit better. So again, that needs to be brought back. But number one, you have to agree with them because you're still on their side. Number two, the biggest one is having empathy doesn't mean that you're adding value, you're helping them. Empathy is misused most of the time from what I've seen. So sympathy, it's confused for sympathy. Sympathy was developed in the 1500s, and it meant to have feelings of affection towards a negative outcome of someone. Empathy wasn't developed until 300 years later in the 1800s, and it was a German term, and what it meant was you are projecting your feelings onto an inanimate object. And essentially, a good book to read, if you read Against Empathy by Paul Bloom, he goes into there's two types of empathy, cognitive and emotional. And that cognitive empathy just means you understand someone else's perspective, but not that you necessarily feel any way about it. So understanding how someone is metric is empathy. You understand their situation and why they would make a decision based on that metric, but you don't necessarily feel any way about it. Emotional empathy means you've entered in with them. So if you see someone hit their nail with the hammer, and you wince, that's emotional empathy. So just because I understand someone's situation, understand that they're metric on something, doesn't mean that I'm necessarily challenging them or helping them. I can be Team Becc, or like if I was prospecting into me, I'm going to be on my side, but that doesn't mean that I have the expertise to help me. So usually the reason that someone is or the reason someone seeks out counsel from someone else is they know something that person doesn't know. So if I just know about my buyer, it doesn't mean that I can challenge my buyer or I can add any value because of it, because where you're really going to add value are the things they don't know. You're optimizing for harmony, which means you're looking for one accord. And again, there's going to be a bit of tension, or uncomfortability whenever you're trying to uncover things that will help them. A doctor's goal isn't to make the patient comfortable. They're not doing that with every single thing that they're doing. Their goal is to help the patient by solving their problems. So sometimes they'll say you're going to feel a little bit of discomfort or you're going to feel severe discomfort. But what they're doing is helping the prospect or helping the patient long term. So same thing within Rapport. You're not going to be able to do any of that because you're optimizing for harmony only. And then the last one here is people don't challenge often in this mindset. When they're in this mindset of how do I be on my buyer's side, they're not naturally in the challenging mindset. So credibility. This is the third one. And the problems with it are, number one, when I hear people say, how do I be more credible? I'm like, you're asking the wrong question. At a high level, you can't act more credible. Again, credibility is just inspiring belief. So someone can't will themselves to believe. So when people are optimizing for credibility or optimizing for rapport, what I see them doing is they're trying to deploy techniques to make themselves look like they're an expert. So you're aimed on acting. You're not actually after the expertise, so that's number one. Number two, credibility, again, is just inspiring belief. So my question is, what are they believing in? I hear a lot of talk back and forth on LinkedIn about people talking all, on and on and on and on and on about empathy, and them not transitioning into like, oh, I want to, send my buyer like some, masks during the pandemic, or baby wipes because they ran out of them, or I want to send them a muffin basket to make their day. And I'm like, when I think back to the people that meant the most to me in my life, it's not the people that gave me what I wanted all the time. It's the people that helped me by growing me. So my mom is a great example of this. She is not always easy on me. She does not always agree with me. She doesn't always disagree with me, but she'll ask me about a situation and I'll explain the situation, and she'll say, well, what do you like, you don't need to be acting like that. And I'm like, Mom, you're right. She's like, you don't need to act like that in that situation. You don't need to assume malintent in this situation, kind of thing. And she calls me out on things. And I'm like, you know what? You're completely correct. But then she'll say, like, I do think that you're right here. Like, you're right to be upset in that X, Y, and Z. And like, she's someone who constantly and consistently validates me on some things and then challenges me on some other things. Why? Because she's not optimizing for me liking her. She's optimizing for me to grow because she has my back. So she knows that to get there, that she has to challenge me in a certain amount of ways. Another great example, and then I'll move on to so many personal examples, and probably the most personal data I've ever given up, certainly in a video, but my dad, I remember whenever I was, it's probably 7 or 8 years old, and we went on a run. I was a very, very consistent runner, and I played soccer growing up. And I remember we were on this long run, what I thought was long at the time, and we were getting near the end of it, and I said, Dad, I want to quit. We got probably about a third of a mile away from the house. And I started to slow down, and he said, keep going. And I said, why? And I'll never forget what he said. He said, it builds character. Builds character whenever you finish something that's tough that you said that you would. And that stuck in my head. In that moment, it would have been easier for him to say, yeah, let's just go ahead and stop. It's really hard. But instead, he challenged me and he taught me something that I'll never forget. So when it comes to credibility, when it comes to likability, comes to rapport, having your prospects back most often comes down to challenging them and having the available data to be able to make that challenge. It's often mistaken, credibility is often mistaken for product expertise versus prospect expertise, meaning more often than not, I hear on the sales floor people saying the number one thing I need more of is product knowledge, not prospect knowledge. And number 4, it's not based on the ability to diagnose or prognose or solve problems. It's simply based typically on the ability to be able to sound knowledgeable. And then the last one here, it's not based on reliability, that you can deliver whatever the outcome is. So again, people are going to buy based on problems. They're going to buy to solve problems. So credibility is going to, if you optimize for this alone, you're leaving out to bay whether you have the ability to do something and whether your prospect has a firm belief that you can deliver on whatever you said you were going to. Optimizing for trust. These are the wonderful things that happen as a result of this, and then we're going to close out. Number 1, you're inspiring belief in your ability, and you get credibility by default. So if you optimize for trust, you're inspiring that they believe that you're telling the truth, that you have the ability to add expertise, the reliability to deliver on whatever you proposed. And so credibility comes by default. Number 2, it requires empathy, meaning understanding your buyer persona to be able to be trustworthy. So understanding your buyer is the first piece to problem-centric selling and effective selling in general. And so for that to be built, you have to have a level of empathy, meaning you have to understand your buyer's world. So all of a sudden, the rapport is issued in by default because you're on your buyer's side. You understand their perspective because you know their metrics. You know their problems. You know what they're running into. Number 3, when you understand their metrics and problems and struggles, it makes you more like. So likability, there are a number of different studies that say that you are more prone to like things that look like you and things that act like you and things that you, there is a Greek term, there's 4 different Greek terms for the word love, and one of them is strictly based on familiarity, meaning the more familiar you are with something, the more apt you are to like or to love it. So the funny thing, the interesting thing is, even if you were optimizing for people to like you, how you get there is challenging them. So whenever you understand your buyer and you are helping them in terms of their metrics, problems, struggles, etc., you become more, they see you as more alike, as in you're both after accomplishing their goal. So they're more apt to like you because of it. So I think a very big fallacy that people believe in general is that for someone to like them, they should agree with them all the time, or that they should just, give them all the support. And studies will actually show the opposite, that the people who challenge us in a direct way are the ones that we're more apt to like. So the people who listen to us, understand us, and then get us in a better spot because of it. They firmly believe that you're telling the truth. They have a firm belief in your ability, a firm belief in the strength of your idea, and that they can rely on you. So all of this is going to be wrapped up that you have the credibility, meaning you're inspiring the belief in your skill set. You are basing that belief on the fact that you understand their buyer persona. And because of it, you look more alike them in the process, and that you're both after the same thing. So you'll nab up rapport, credibility, and the likability in the process if you optimize for the skills necessary for them to be able to trust you. So again, that's going to be that they believe that you're telling the truth, that they believe in your ability to add expertise and value that they don't have, and ability and reliability that you can deliver exactly what you said you could. So in summary, I know that it is a 1,000-year-old myth or several thousand-year-old myth that we should just say nice things to someone to get them to like us so they'll buy more of our product. But it's not only that that's not the way to achieve likability, it's that that's it often, I would say, I would almost argue 100% of the time, at the detriment of our buyer. We need to have the relationship with our buyer, one that's based on the fact that we know who they are by and large, and we want to understand more details about them to help them solve their problems, so that after our relationship, they're in a better spot than beforehand. So all of that can be nabbed up in trust, and your ability to understand your buyer, to diagnose problems and prescribe things that will solve those problems, the reliability that you can deliver on the things that you prescribed and that it will solve their problems, and that they trust that you're telling the truth along the way. So I hope this was helpful. And the great news about this is, after you optimize for trust and you achieve all the former, they'll like you because of it. So it's a good way to encompass all four of them all together. So that is everything. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this session, you want to see more on sales tactical advice and anything when it comes to sales process and technique, if you go to flipthescript.co, and we have a myriad of different sessions there. And if you really like this session, if you want to go to Flip the Script on LinkedIn and give us a follow, we put out all kinds of content several times a week. But either way, I very much so appreciate you watching this session, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Watch out.